Another Sydney tower has been evacuated. Let's have a look. Good morning, everyone. I'm Florian Heiser, and welcome to another episode of Heiser Says. I have my stein of coffee. It's good coffee. And I thought today we'd look at another Sydney tower that has been evacuated. This seems to be a common trend. And I spoke about this during my live stream last night, and I thought we'd go through it again just to make it a standalone video. So, Sydney high-rise tower evacuated after movement. And this is from SBS News. Residents of a high-rise tower in Sydney have been forced to leave their homes due to structural issues with the building, authorities say. Residents have been forced to leave a Sydney high-rise apartment complex due to concerns over reports of movement in the building. Now, buildings are designed to move. They're designed to settle. Larger ones are even designed to sway in the wind. But that's not that much, barely noticeable, and either very slowly. So if you can notice the movement, that's concerning. About 3/4 of the occupants living in the 122 apartment Mascot Towers on Bourke Street in the inner South Sydney suburb of Mascot have been told to get out. So 3/4 of the people living there, once again. Residents have been evacuated from an apartment in the Sydney suburb. So have a look here. You know, how old is the building? Last time I checked, it was 10 years old, 9 years old. So similar, didn't we just see a bridge that was built in Perth just recently? And let's have a look at the footage there of the Perth collapse. You know, this happened in Perth just recently. 9-year-old bridge. So maybe there was something happening in that period. There have been some concerns with movement in the building, New South Wales Fire and Rescue Superintendent Adam Dewberry told AAP on Friday night. Engineers are inspecting the decade-old building, decade-old, not decades old, after concerns about its integrity and signs of movement, he said. A police spokesman said there was no immediate risk of the building collapse. There may have been an ongoing issue, but it is still a matter. There may be an ongoing issue, but it's still a matter to be determined, he said. Yeah, I'm just changing that sentence. Monitoring equipment is also being used on the building to help identify issues. It will be a process. It won't be a simple fix. It will be very methodical. Yes, well, Superintendent Dewberry said, as the incident was still evolving, it was yet to determine when residents will be able to go home or if they needed a permanent relocation. Residents have been taken to the rear of a building at Gardner's Road, a police spokesman said. Roads remain closed in Church Avenue and Bourke Street. Now, there's one thing to think about here. Because this building is 10 years old, it's not within the defects liability period of the original construction. And 10 years, I think it's also outside of the 7-year period to do with the construction. So I don't know how the occupants are going to afford to pay for their accommodation. Can their insurance cover them for this? I'm not sure. I hope so. Let's have a look at another take of the same story from The Guardian. So residents of Sydney's Mascot Towers evacuated after cracks emerged. Police say there is no immediate risk of a collapse as residents await advice on when they'll be able to return. So a file picture shows a view of Mascot, Sydney. Residents have had to leave a high-rise tower in the suburb following reports of movement in the building. Residents have been forced to leave a Sydney high-rise apartment complex because of concerns over reports of movements in the building. About 3/4 of occupants living in the 122 apartment Mascot Towers on Bourke Street in the inner South Sydney suburb of Mascot were told to evacuate on Friday. There have been some concerns over it's the same thing. Engineers were inspecting the decade-old building to check on its integrity and signs of movement, he said. No immediate risk. We'll keep going here. If there's anything new, they're adding. Yep, it's the same quote, same article. So they're just repeating it. Here we go. In a letter from building management, residents were advised that an engineer had inspected cracking that had developed in the transverse slab beam supporting the primary building corner. So shoot, here you go. Here's the cracks. So above the shop, look at that. Cracks in wall at hairdresser salon next to 10-story tower that was evacuated due to cracks in Mascot overnight. Engineers inspecting the residential complex today told ABC News. Well, look at those cracks, guys. Look at that. That ain't good. What do you think it could be? More Rio problems? More cost-cutting problems. Following the inspection, the engineer raised concerns over the safety for residents in the building, the letter read. Well, yeah, the engineer would do that just to be on the safe side. 100% you would do that rather than risk it. You would happily inconvenience 100 families just to avoid one death. And I completely support that move. It has been determined that there will be a partial evacuation of the building, pending further monitoring of the transfer beam over the course of the next week. This will determine if the building is safe for reoccupation. In December, hundreds of residents had to be evacuated from Opal Tower in Sydney's Olympic Park after a crack developed in the load-bearing concrete panel, and the building shifted 2 millimeters, causing plaster to crack and doors to stick in their frames. In February, an independent report found that multiple design and construction faults had led to the damage at Opal. So one thing to think about, all of this, there's fundamental issues in our construction industry, and a lot of that is gone over in the Shergold-Weir report, and I've gone through that in a several-part series that I'll link to here, the first part, and you can listen to at least the first part, which is the summary of the report, and it's issues in the construction industry. It's issues to do with responsibilities. It's issues to do with the way buildings are procured. What are the solutions to this? Well, I think there's going to have to be some drastic changes to the way buildings are procured, to liability and risk. I think there needs to be a look at more traditional methods of procurement, this design and construct method, fast method, where they're still building the foundations. Well, they're already building the foundations while they haven't completed the design for the upper stories. And then you have to make modifications to your design. Maybe if a sales agent combines apartments, all of this stuff makes a difference, guys. It makes a big difference. So please let me know what you think. Are you happy with this issue? Do you think there's more to it? What about the people in this building? Are they going to be covered by the insurance? Should they? Should the state? Should the government step in? Should the government assume more responsibility? What about the developer if they've just done the runner and haven't done any work, or if they've wrapped up their business, or if the builder has disappeared? Because look at that. That's a major structural issue. That's a concern, and it's something you want to avoid. Anyway, guys, please like, share, and subscribe. Ding the bell to see my daily updates, and I'll talk to you all again tomorrow. Bye for now.